Welcome to the House of Phi. At the House of Phi, we inspire and encourage families of all shapes and demographics to achieve financial independence. Here, we teach you to become debt-free, build wealth, and increase your income. We also share inspiring stories of others on the road to Phi, others who have made it to Phi, as well as some of our own perspective about this journey. If you're a family on the road to financial independence, we want you to know that financial independence is for everyone. We're glad you're here. Hey everyone, before we get into the show, I just wanted to remind you of a couple of things. Have you signed up for our private Facebook group yet? If you haven't yet, you should. And if you're liking the show, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave us a written review over on iTunes or Stitcher or any of the other mediums that you found our show on. Now, finally, we have this awesome 7-step money challenge course that we would love for you to join us. It's 7 steps over the course of 21 days, and it will lay the foundation for the future that you dream of. Now, I hope you enjoy this show. Hey, House of Phi family, welcome back to the show. So today my guest is my husband, Curtis. So you've heard Curtis a couple of times on the Side Hustle Spotlight, but I thought it would be good for you guys to actually get to know a little bit more about him personally, how we met, his money story, and how he was the reluctant spouse for a little while. I know that that's a common question that comes up in a lot of our interactions is that how do you get your spouse on board? So I thought Curtis would be a really great person to talk to about that and get his perspective. I'll also ask that you bear with me today. I am getting over a cold, and so my voice is strained, and I will do my best to make sure you guys can hear me. Hey, babe, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Are you nervous?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Well, don't be. This is just us talking to our friends.
All right.
All right. Curtis, tell our audience your money story. Tell them a little bit about how you grew up, where you grew up, and then, just about your money history and knowledge of money. And
Well, about 9 years old, we moved to California from Ohio, and it was just me, my dad, and my mom. We got out here first. I have 2 other siblings. Once we moved to Southern California, we lived in a pretty small, to me, it was pretty small, but a 3-bedroom house. It had 2 bathrooms, and it was just us for a while. And then probably after about 2 to 3 years, I had my own room. And then this is when we had our grandmother move in, our aunt move in, our cousins moved in, and I got kicked out of the room. And I guess they were all there because they needed to save money, and they all moved out from Ohio to California.
so was that all of your mom's family or your dad's family?
It was all of my mom's family.
And so everyone from Columbus moved out to California with you guys.
Yeah, it was pretty much about 6 to 7 people, and it was fine at first until I didn't have a room. I had to sleep on the couch for the majority of 4 years.
So how long did that last? How long was everybody living with your family?
It was about close to 4 years.
Okay, so that would put you maybe like right before junior high?
Yes, right before junior high.
And then did anything happen during that time that was a big change in your household?
I knew we were struggling when it came down to money because everybody in the household worked, everybody pitched in, and everybody ended up buying groceries, paying for utilities, and I really didn't recognize it. I was just being a young kid and playing outside. As I look back, I knew that we were strapped money-wise.
And at some point, did your dad leave the house?
Yeah, my dad was a truck driver, so he was on the road about 90% of the time. So I saw him about maybe once or twice a month. And, it was when he was there, he was mainly in the garage on a CB and, a little bit of time with the family. But, some of the times that we did have, we would go to Disneyland or do some sort of trips before he had to go on his next route.
And at some point, though, your mom and dad got divorced, right?
Yes.
How did that affect your household?
Well, we had moved to Corona, California, and it was myself, my mom, my brother, my sister had moved out, and my grandmother there. And she had told me what was going on. It affected the household really bad because we knew we didn't have an income. coming in, and my mom was working constantly, and my brother was gone all the time, and my grandma was retired. And so she was making ends meet with all of us in the house.
So your mom worked really hard to just get by.
Yes, she did.
Do you think that that impacted your view about money?
It did and it didn't, because I knew that we always had food on the table. That was the one thing my grandmother had talked to me about, is as long as you got a roof over your head and food on the table, you're doing good. And with my mom, she always made sure that that always was true. Money-wise, I never got an allowance. I didn't have any type of knowledge about what money was until I started to get my own money and work.
So let's talk about that a little bit. When did you first start working?
Around age 16, I was playing football, had some spare time in the summer. I did some odd jobs, construction work, and I knew I didn't want to do the hard labor. I never wanted to have calluses on my hands, so I wanted to do something that I enjoyed, and I ended up getting a job, my first job, at Little Caesars Pizza.
Did you like that?
I loved that job. I mean, I worked there for about the first 6 months, and then I ended up getting promoted and being a closing assistant manager, and I worked there for a good 3 years before I ended up going off to college.
You know, you saw your mom struggling to make ends meet, but making them meet. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're in high school and you have a job and you're getting money. What was that like for you?
Oh, it was amazing. That was the most money, even though it was about $500 or $600 a week. And the time that I put in, it was pretty amazing having some money in my pocket, being able to buy certain things that I needed, being able to purchase my first car and a motorcycle, and being able to buy my mom some gifts. I remember the first time that I purchased something for the household, our washing machine had broke down, and I bought my mom a new washer and dryer.
You're getting this money. Did anybody teach you what you should do with the money? Did anybody tell you you should save any of it? Was that ever discussed?
No, I never really had any type of savings in those 3 years. I would always spend it. It would be used for either prom. At that time, I had a girlfriend, or I would buy stuff for her. There was never no savings, either taught or had any knowledge.
Then eventually you get up to University of Nevada, Reno. That's where we met.
Yes.
So were you working at all when you were up there?
Well, my first few years playing football, we're not allowed to work. So I just ended up playing football. And then after that, I got injured. And I started to get a job. I used to work at a few car dealerships, little jobs here and there. I didn't really actually have a steady job until I worked at Rites of Passage.
Now, when you started at Rites of Passage, that's about, we met. We met first, though, right?
Yeah, we actually met. And there's a long story behind that. But money-wise, that was the first time that I had a stable job and I had met you.
Right. And so we dated, I would say, for maybe a little under 2 years. And then we found out we were going to have Madison.
Yes, we had Madison.
How did that change things for you?
It made it a little bit stressful, but, you know, I was on board and I knew that I had to be the provider at that time. You were working, but it was part-time. Sometimes it was full-time if we were able to, you know, make our schedule work. But I knew I had to work to bring money home.
Things were tight.
Yeah, it was very tight. I remember we just had a crib, a little futon, your TV that you had from your old apartment in college, and the bed set. We had that whitewashed, almost pinkish bed set.
It was 1980s, like whitewashed furniture with, you know, mauve sheets with, you know, teal green.
Yes.
The typical 1980s with the Aztec print. Now, but then we got married.
Yes.
But before we got married, we actually, to save money and actually pay for the wedding, we lived apart for a little while.
Yes, we did. I had to live with a buddy. You moved back to Fallon with your parents, and I was doing 2 jobs. I was working out at out in the desert, and that was a week on, week off type situation. So I was out there for the full week. And then when I came back, I was working for a 2 college-sized moving company just to make ends meet. And that was pretty much 7 days a week. And it was difficult. And you would come down on the weekends with Maddie and we'd spend our time and we just rinse and repeat, just start right back over again.
Yeah. And then after that, we ended up moving. We got married. So we got married in June of 1996.
Yes.
And then we moved to Phoenix because your brother was out there.
Yes.
And so that time was also
it was tough.
Also tough.
Yeah, because we were struggling. We ended up spending most of our savings just to get there because we knew that there were some job opportunities, especially for me working out with a lot of juveniles in Nevada. There was a program out in Arizona called Arizona Boys Ranch. So I've been in the kid business this whole time. And so we decided to move out here because the pay was better and the cost of living was pretty much comparable.
It was good at that time.
Yeah. And so we ended up moving in with my brother in a 1-bedroom apartment with his wife at that time. We were sleeping in the little nook area where the dining room table was with our daughter.
Yeah, that was stressful.
Yes.
So we got our own apartment. You're working a lot. I had transferred to Arizona State where I was working at Wells Fargo. I remember during that time doing our checkbook, and we would have paid all of our bills and we would have $25 left over.
Yes. We wouldn't have no entertainment money. We wouldn't have anything.
It was mac and cheese and peanut butter jelly.
All those times.
I always say, like, we've lived on peanut butter and jelly before.
Yeah, we've been there, done that.
Right. But things got better. Mm-hmm. Things got better. So then we were there for, I would say, maybe 2.5, almost 3 years. And then we came out to San Diego when I started law school.
Yes, that's when you got accepted to law school. We moved out to El Cajon.
Right. Maddie was maybe 3.
She was in preschool.
And so during law school, I couldn't really work a whole lot. So you were busting your butt.
Yes. From Arizona coming out to San Diego, I had to work because the cost of living was a lot more than what we had before. I had to work about 3 jobs. I was working at a group home, and then in the afternoons I would coach. And then sometimes at night through the group home, I would be doing overnight. So I would be gone almost 24 hours, come home and just sleep and do it all over again for the first probably 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. That was still hard.
Yes.
It was really hard. And so during that time, all we're really doing is just surviving, right?
Yeah, we didn't have no savings. And I still had no clue about money because from when we got married, I had never seen one of my paychecks. So I didn't know how to do finances. I didn't know how to do anything like that. Wendy would take care of my paychecks. She would get them and divvy it out to what we needed, gas, food, and that was it. That's all I did. I worked and she took care of the bills.
Was that difficult for you? Was that hard, having me take things over?
Just knowing that I had to make ends meet or just bring home a paycheck, I didn't really want to worry about that because that would have been so stressful if I didn't know where the money was going to come from. And knowing me, I would have probably said I needed another job, but just let it go and just let you take over the finances.
But we were still struggling.
Oh, yeah. It was always, we're not to the part where we're out of struggling.
Yeah. So we were back in San Diego. We were there for about 3 years and maybe just a little over 3 years. And then we moved back to Phoenix.
Yes.
And that's kind of when things started changing for us, right?
Yeah.
I graduated from law school. Mm-hmm. I finally got a job. It took a while to get a job. We had about a year or no, more than a year, maybe almost 2 years after I graduated where I didn't get a job because it was after 9/11 and the economy just took a dump and we filed bankruptcy.
Yes.
So early on in our marriage, I'm newly graduated from law school and we filed a bankruptcy.
Yes, I didn't really know much about it, but I knew that with the debt that we had and how we were struggling, that was our only way of getting back on track.
Right. By that time, you had gotten your bachelor's degree mm-hmm. and you were working on your master's.
Yes, I was working on my master's and I was working at that time.
Right.
Another group home.
But you were getting your master's in education.
Yes.
Right.
I got my master's in education and then I was working toward my teaching credential.
Right. And then we ended up,
I finally got a job as a lawyer.
Yeah. Yes, finally.
And then, so I thought it was great money. It probably wasn't very much at the time. It was only about $40,000. But then you were working as well. You were finally able to teach. So we were finally in a position where we actually had grown-up incomes.
Yes.
And then we got our house.
Yes.
We have these grown-up incomes and we buy our house. And I mean, what was that like for you?
We were at a point where it wasn't so stressful, and we knew that we were able to save a little money and get off the macaroni and cheese and the meals that we never liked eating, and have some adult money and some free time and some money to do anything we needed to at that
But
time.
we didn't really save.
No, we didn't.
We spent it all.
We did spend it all.
And I think that comes from, growing up, having that deprivation mindset. Like, you never had any money to do anything. So when you get your money, this is what you're going to do with it. And really no guidance from, our parents about how to save and why you should save and how much you should save and the importance of saving. So then we fell into the same old cycle, right?
Yes, we did. We didn't, I know while I was growing up that money was never talked about. It was just one of those things that we made it. If I did ask, my mom would always say, it's none of your business. Even when I had a job, I asked that simple question, Mom, how much do you make? It's none of your business. Just don't worry about it. So, it wasn't a big concern for me. And just like you said, once you got your paycheck, you spent it.
Right. And so we had some ups and downs there for a while as well. And then we found Financial Peace University.
Yes.
And we found that through
our church.
Right.
Yes.
How was that? What was that like? Did you have any, were there any epiphanies for you or anything like that when we were taking Financial Peace?
When we first started, I just thought it was tedious. At the time, it's like, a lot of work. I never knew how to balance our checkbook. I didn't know where the money was coming, where it was going. I just knew I had to work. And once we took the class, I was able to realize that you do have to balance your checkbook. You have to have some money to pay your bills, and you have to
be debt free.
Yeah, you have to be debt free. But at that time we weren't. We were still a little bit buried.
We were trying to get out of it, and we were out of it for a little while, but we always had the student loans.
Yes.
So let's talk about that for a second. So how did you pay for college after you were injured and you no longer had the money for scholarship?
I say we because that's at that time we were together, and you were giving me a lot of financial and advice about how to go about things. But we took out student loans, and most of the student loans, half of it would pay for school and the other half would pay for our household income. And so we just did this a constant cycle.
And it was the blind leading the blind.
Yeah, it was actually.
Because I didn't know what I was doing either. I just knew that if you wanted to go to school and you didn't have any money, you could take out a loan.
Yes.
And they would give it to you. And we weren't wise with it.
Yeah. And then, and we would do this constantly every year. It would just go from, even though that, I was going for my teaching degree, I would still have pretty decent money left over for us to do little things. But after about, I would say a week or two, that money was gone. And we were right back in the same boat.
Okay. So we did Financial Peace. We did really, really good for a while. We paid off our cars. We didn't have any debt. And then we kind of fell off the wagon a little bit. And then that brings us pretty much to a few years ago, where, after the boys and we moved out here. And so I'm just going to fast forward to that point where, I knew that I wanted to quit my practice. And you knew that I wanted to quit my practice, but I was the breadwinner.
Yes, you were. And I emphasize were.
And then at that time I was still working, but I come to you with this idea of
one of many
financial independence. So I want to hear from your perspective what that was like for you, because I really don't know.
Well, first with the quitting her practice, again, her being the breadwinner, I just worked. That's all I did. Again, where almost 20 plus years into our marriage, and I haven't had a regular paycheck in my hand to do something with, but she's telling me that she's ready to shut down her practice. And I knew that this was a stressful job for her because she would have to come back and forth. I wouldn't see her for maybe 2 days or 3 or more at a time. And just letting us know that she didn't want to do it, I was not 100% on board with it because I knew that with her income being gone, then we would be in a stressful type situation. And I am the stressed person. Anytime a situation happens, I'm the first one to stress, and she's the first one to talk me down. So I didn't understand what she was talking about when it came down to financial independence. I mean, it had to be explained to me, and I still wasn't 100% on board. I just said, okay, as long as our money's getting saved, as long as we're on a path and we can pay for the mortgage and we have food in the house. Just when my mom said, hey, as long as you have a roof over your head and you have food in the cupboards, you're fine. And so I took that and continually just said, that's all we need to have.
So was there ever a moment where like it wasn't just, okay, I trust my wife and this is what she wants to do, so we're going to do it, and it transitioned to like, I understand and I'm on board? What did you ever have a moment like that?
It took a while, and me just being a stress case most of the time, I didn't really understand where she was coming from when she talked about financial independence. I think the moment that finally hit me was I had called you. You were driving back from Phoenix, and I had seen that previously you've been telling me you were listening to the Choose Fi podcast.
Right.
So I decided to turn it on and listen to one of Brad and Jonathan's episodes. And I think it was the Pillars
of Fi.
The Pillars of Fi. And I ended up calling you, telling you exactly what I had learned from that podcast.
So my recollection of that is I was so excited. Like,
yes.
I was so excited that you had listened, because it's one thing to like have you be like, yes, dear. And it's another for you to like be 100% on board.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I remember is that I then came home and we were sitting on our bed and I started working some spreadsheets.
Yes, she just went overboard with, and I'm a simple man. And, I do work and I do little things, but she was putting everything down and going through, well, this is what we're going to do. We're going to do this, and we're going to have this, and this is going to take this amount of years. And at that time, I was just like, yes, dear. Yes, dear.
But you liked the end result of the calculation, right?
Yes, I did.
And what was that like for you to see that if we followed this plan, if we followed these rules, that we would retire and have the life that we wanted?
It was a feeling of relief that you don't have to be in the rat race, all the way up until
Forever.
You're 65 or 70. And yeah, you don't have to be in the rat race forever. And I knew that it seemed like a simple plan. All we had to do was cut back on a lot of things that we were doing, which we have, and continue to move forward with our savings. And that's when a lot of things started to click. Now, I don't say I was 100% on board when it came down to, the full fire movement or the full fire.
But you were on board with the plan.
But I was on board with the plan.
Okay.
Yes.
So then in October of last year, we went to Greece. Now, originally, when I told you we were going to Greece, you thought we were just going on a vacation, right?
Yes, you slipped that in. We were just going to Greece to hang out and have fun and enjoy it.
Little did he know I had a plan.
Yes, she did.
But I knew it was going to be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was going to be an amazing experience. So we went to Chautauqua last year. Brad and Jonathan from Choose Fi were there. J.L. Collins and his wife were there. Christy and Bryce from Millennial Revolution were there. And then Alan Donegan and his wife were there. And we just met the other people who were at the Chautauqua as well. And for me, it was just this surreal moment. It was being around people who thought the same things as we did, who wanted the same things as we did. Some of them were still on the journey like us,
Yes.
but others were just everyday people who were millionaires. And I just remember like sitting in, in this beautiful resort on the Aegean Sea and looking out over the ocean and just being like, I can't believe that we're here. And what I wanted for you, though, is I wanted for you to have those moments. Like, I wanted for you to have your own moments where you felt those things too. And so, well, let me ask you, what was it like? What was it like meeting J.L. Collins, who was someone that I was so excited about?
I mean, just like you said, they were just regular people that had a plan, that executed their plan. And I was there, they called us the first thing.
Reluctant spouses.
Yeah, or the tag-along. I was the tag-along spouses. And there was other spouses there that were tag-along. They would ask me as we were telling our story, are you the tag-along spouse? And I'm like, yes, I am. So, but I mean, it was great experience. Once we got to meet everybody, and I understood that everybody was like-minded. They had a plan, they wanted to execute, and they knew the path that they were going. Again, I wasn't still 100% on board until we get through a few days, meeting each person, talking to each person, and listen to what their story was, and just excellent stories, and knew that they were on fire for it. I mean, that's the appropriate word for it, is they were on fire for it, and they didn't want to turn back. And just meeting each one of them, I know when we first got into the hotel, I didn't know who J.L. Collins was. I was just like, oh, and he came up to me. He's just a great guy. He came up to me. He's like, hey, we're the only two big guys in here. And then right then and there, I'm like, this is just a down-to-earth guy, and he just made us feel welcome, as well as his family. That was the first impression that I got, that as we came in, there was no, we have our act
there was
together.
No pretense or anything like that. Pretentiousness.
Yeah.
So let me just pause here, because what was so cute about Dale Collins is a big man, and you're a big man.
Yes.
You're
6'4". And he's about 6'4", 6'3".
And so both these just imposing figures. And so every time I would turn around, they were together. So it was so exciting for me to see that. And I was just hopeful that, just wisdom would spill out and Kurt would soak it up. And then my memory of one of my favorite memories, and I don't know if I've told you this before, is it was one night, and I think it was the night after Dale Collins' presentation to the group, and we went back to our room, and I was going to go to sleep. I started hearing Jim's voice, and I'm like, what is that? And I turned over, and you had ordered his audiobook, and you were listening to his audiobook. And that's when I knew. That's when I was like, okay, like we're good. He's on board. This is it. Like, you get it.
Yes.
And, I recommend J.L. Collins' book all the time. And what I love about it is that he wrote this book for his daughter. He wanted his daughter, Jessica, to just know all of the things that he had done, and he hoped that she would pick up on it, and he hoped that she would learn from him, and she has. We got to meet Jessica as well, and she's incredible. But to then meet Jim in person and see what just a down-to-earth guy he is, how genuine he is. He's not in this for the money. He's not in it for anything but to help other people find a way. And the title of his book, The Simple Path to Wealth, it really is simple.
Yes. So that was your epiphany. And mine was, just listening to everybody. And, I wanted to understand what everybody was talking about. Me being the tag along and not have any type of knowledge about the FIRE movement, and everybody talking about BTSAX. And I wanted to know exactly what he was talking about. And talking with him and listening to everybody else. I'm not a big reader, but I will listen to audiobooks.
Mhm.
And that was the first thing. I wanted to know what was going on. And he does have a pleasant voice, deep voice like mine. So it was easy to listen to. And, afterwards, once I had listened to the first about, I think it's 6 chapters
Mhm.
at the time, because we always had our gatherings, I let him know that I bought his book on audio.
You did?
Yes, I did. And I said, that was my first purchase of a book in a long time. And he just sat back. He said, oh, that's good. That's great. And,
Oh,
we sat and chatted for a while, but it was an awesome experience.
it was. He's a good guy.
Yes.
So now we have this kind of vision for our future, which the other thing that we were able to do at Chautauqua was, we have this plan that we've mapped out, and it's one thing to have this plan and have like done the spreadsheets, played it all out in personal capital. You think it's going to work, but we actually gave our plan and we presented it to Dale Collins and asked his opinion about it, and if we follow through, it should work.
Yes.
So what was that like for you to know that at 55, you can retire as a teacher if we follow these steps, and to like almost have the stamp of approval on it?
That was very exciting. I think that raised from 70% all the way up to about 85, 90%.
Only 90?
Yeah, we're getting there.
Oh my gosh.
But there's still room for me to grow and still understand, and we're getting to that point. But when he had told us we're on the right path, and with me working, he said, if we continue to do what we're doing, 55, we should be at that point. But if I love my job, I can continue to work, even still have that money. And there was a lot of knowledge that, just in that short amount of time that he gave me, that made it concrete that we can do this together.
It's a pretty audacious plan.
Yeah, it is.
All right. So, babe, what I want to do now is I want to ask you, so for any of our listeners out there who have maybe the reluctant spouse or a partner who is maybe not on board, do you have any suggestions for them?
So one piece of sound advice that I would give to everybody would be, even though you had through a barrage of ideas and spreadsheets and pretty much everything at me, I would just say be patient. Wendy was persistent about it. She knew that this was the right path for us, even though that, I wasn't fully on board. I just worked and wanted to have savings and do the American dream. But once we talked to quite a few people, I had my moment. That's what I would say to you is the most important thing is, you got to have your own moment. It'll come to you. It'll click that this is the right path for you. And, I don't want to work until I'm 70 years old. I love my teaching job. I'm in the kid business, and I wouldn't give it up for anything, because I do take some of these experiences and teach the kids what I'm doing, where is my path. And they say, wow, they understand that. And so hopefully that they have their aha moment at a younger age. It took me up until I was 47 years old to have an aha moment. Also, another bit of advice I can tell you is you can do your own research. You can listen to podcasts, you can get some books, or, you can even look at some of the videos that are on YouTube. And I do that pretty often to find out, if there's anything new, if there's something else that we need to learn, even coming down to earning extra money. There's a lot of good information out there that you can get about the FIRE movement.
So maybe give them suggestions for things that they can read or listen to, but they've still got to do it themselves.
Yes, you got to do the footwork yourself. You got to buy in.
What I think I'm hearing you say is patience, persistence, but also letting them have their own moment.
Yes.
Right. So the other thing that I would say is that it may be a situation where your spouse is never on board.
Yeah, that would be difficult.
Or your partner's never on board. And then you have to make a decision. You have to make a decision what are you going to do about it? How can you can you get them partially on board in some way? Can you at least get them to curb their or agree to save maybe? Maybe they don't want to stop spending, but they'll agree to save a certain amount. And then you just do your part. But if they're completely and totally not on board at all, then there's a problem.
Yes.
And then that's maybe something that you need to look into about why the two of you cannot get on the same page about finances, because that's a bigger problem overall. And so I would encourage you to then maybe seek some outside help to at least get on board with some larger principles.
Yes. And it took us a while to be on the same page, but eventually a little bit of wearing down and continually talking about it and coming to the same conclusion of this is where we need to be in the long run for ourselves as well as our family, made us understand that this was the right path for our family.
And instead of, struggling until we're 70, we're actually going to be able to leave a legacy for our kids.
Yes, we will. That was
cool.
The biggest thing. That was another key thing that Jim talked about was leaving your legacy, leaving enough behind for your family to live off of for generations. And that's the biggest thing that hits me, hard, is that I don't want to have them go through the situation that, we've been through. We struggled, we worked through the hard times, knowing that when we are not around anymore, that they have something to fall back on.
Right. We also, things have changed a little bit as far as like how we talk about money. We talk about it all the time now.
Yes, we do.
And it's been a little bit harder with our 23-year-old because this is all new to her and she's already an adult and has some of her own money habits. But I am encouraged when she tells me that she wants to save, $167 a month because that equals $2,000. And when I showed her the chart, you remember that chart,
Yes.
the old Dave Ramsey chart that
Yes.
says if you save this much for 10 years and then don't put another dime, it'll be a couple $1 million. So she told me, Mom, I wanted to save $167 a month.
Yeah.
So that gives me some hope.
And also with the little ones, anytime they find change in the couch or on the ground, they give it to you and say, Mom, this is saving for your beach house.
That's
and
right.
So anytime they pick up any type of money, that's where it's going. And Michael, that he's very, I would say, frugal. He does buy some wants, but he can keep money around for a long time, and he does save.
I think he gets that from you.
Yeah, I can make $20 last for a long time.
It's because you've been used to not having any money for so long.
True. And it's not hiding it, but I do know how to.
He pockets money, and all of a sudden he'll have like $200, and I'll be like, "Where did you get that?"
Yes.
He's like, "I saved my money."
Yeah, my coins. I have a coin jar, and I do a little bit of recycling, and I'll just get money wherever I can. So that's my little side hustle.
Well, babe, this has been fun.
Yes,
it has. I think even I learned some things about you today. So, babe, earlier you said you were like 80 or 90% on board.
Yes.
How on board are you like right now?
I'm 100% on board.
Woohoo!
Yes. I mean, it took a little time, but I had to do my research. I had to learn. I had to ask and listen to podcasts to be 100% on board. And that's the only thing, I'm on fire now. So I can sit and say that this is where we should be going forward.
I agree. And I'm excited.
I know.
Too. And I will say it is not easy. I have quit my job. Yes. Our income has dropped, and bringing in the income that I need to fill in the gap has been a challenge, but I'm still 100% convinced that we're going to make this work, and we're going to pursue this plan, and it's going to work.
Definitely.
We're going to reach our goals.
Yes, we will.
All right, everyone. Well, thank you so much for tuning in this week and listening to my reluctant spouse. I hope that you have gotten some maybe encouragement and tips if you have a reluctant partner. And we'll welcome you back here on Friday for another Side Hustle Spotlight. Bye.
Bye.
Well, House of Five family, that brings this episode to a close. If you've liked what you've heard, please subscribe in iTunes, as well as any of the other platforms you've found us on. We're on just about all of them. Also, please leave us a written review. They help us to know what you're liking about the show, what we can do better. And for every 5 reviews we receive, that's written reviews, we will give away one of our favorite reads, and that is currently Kids' Money Habits by Amy Coit. It's a great book full of great information, both for parents and kids. Don't forget to check out our show notes on the webpage. There is always bonus information there that didn't make it to the show, and we strive to create good content on there. So please head on over to the website and check that out. Finally, you can find us on Facebook. You can either like our page or you can become part of our Facebook group. It's a private group, and in there we have ongoing discussions about each episode as well as other topics within the Phi community or questions that you have that we can address with upcoming guests. Again, thank you for listening. Come back next week. We're glad you're here.